caregivers aren't like, oh, well, I'm just doing this because then one day he'll pay me back. One day I'll be sick. And he's like, no, I love him and I want to do everything I can to make him comfortable. And I love my children and I want to do everything I can to make sure that they are having a somewhat normal existence. One of the ways that I like to express what Inheritance Hope did for me is as a mother of 3 children, and at that time also a caregiver to my husband full time, I was constantly filled with details. So, what do I pack in the backpack? What's all the things? Okay, this person has to get here and that person has to get there, and details. I felt like a CEO of a major company, but it was just a little family of 5.
Yeah.
And the first day, Inheritance of Hope in Orlando, I'll never forget, we got off the bus from the airport and some volunteers came up and gave us hugs and they took my backpack and they said, let me take that. You don't need to carry it. And I go, oh, it's okay. Like, I got it. Like, I'll take, it's fine. And they're like, nope, for this week, you're not carrying anything. And it, even though it was a physical backpack, it was also a spiritual lifting that they gave me the gift of that week.
Welcome to the Inheritance of Hope podcast. Every day, 562 children lose a parent to terminal illness. They shouldn't have to face that alone. You can pretend to avoid the painful realities of illness, grief, and death, or you can deal with the real stuff in caring community. On the podcast, people in Inheritance of Hope's community share raw, personal stories of pain, trials, and the shadow of death, which are also stories of joy in terminal illness. Find more Inheritance of Hope community at inheritanceofhope.org. Hey everyone, I'm Ellie and I'm your host for this episode of the Inheritance of Hope podcast. I'm really looking forward to today's conversation. I know that our guest is just going to have a lot of good insight. Whether you yourself are in this position or not, this is going to be such a valuable conversation. So go ahead and introduce yourself.
Well, hello, my name is Dr. Aisha Lynn Thomas.
Welcome. Doctor, I didn't know that was the title at the beginning of your name. What is your background?
Yes, I have a doctorate in educational leadership. I think I'm in like my 24th year of education, and I spent the first 20 as a school counselor, an assistant principal, and then a principal. And I was at middle school and elementary for a decade apiece. And then I got lucky enough that I became an education consultant. And I get to travel the country and support schools, mostly turnaround schools, and help them to ensure high levels of learning for all students all the time. It's a great experience. Alongside that, I'm also the solo mom to 3 amazing, incredible children, and 2 of them are in middle school, so they keep me running. It is awesome. And one of them is a sophomore in college.
Oh my goodness, that's quite the background. That's such a good mix of things. I feel like you kind of dabbled in this and dabbled in that. What was your favorite part of all of the things that you've done?
I've been lucky that my skill set, what I'm good at, happens to also be what I love to do. And so it's been a really good match my entire career. And I've also been lucky enough to have really incredible mentors along the way and coaches. So I can't really pick one part of my career that I enjoyed over another because I truly, when I was in it, loved it. Like when I was in middle school, I loved it. Well, I was actually junior high at first, and then we converted to middle school. Even when I was a school counselor of 700 students, 6th grade through 9th grade at one point, I loved it. Like it was just go, go, go. And I was making a difference in kids' lives. And it was such a positive experience. And then when I moved into administration and really started going deep and learning about the instruction in the classroom, it was so exciting to be able to have like a different aspect of education. And then when I moved to elementary, it was like a whole nother genre of awesomeness.
Yeah.
Because I went from, walking into the cafeteria in a middle school where people would be like, oh no, Mrs. Thomas is coming. Because middle school, they don't want to like make eye contact. And then to elementary where you're a celebrity, being the principal of an elementary school, they're just like, Mrs. Thomas, yeah! It was just fun every day.
Yeah.
And both of my schools, I was lucky enough to just have incredible staff who were open to learning. And so we jumped into learning about, our curriculums, creating new assessments, and really honing in the multi-tiered systems of support for each student. And both schools won state and national awards. I received a national award from the U.S. Department of Education as a school leader. And it just really, I don't have a favorite part because every day was amazing. And then when I transitioned into being able to travel the country as a consultant, going into schools where teachers are like, they're working so hard. I will hear them say this, we work so hard and long hours, but they don't see the results. And so when I can help them to back it up a little bit and focus on essential standards and get real clear about what they're doing, it's very exciting to see the results turn around and see kids learning. And then I come back and the teachers are so excited, like, oh my gosh, this worked. 80% of our students got this concept, and they have like hard data to be able to show improvement in student learnings. I'm really lucky. And right now I'm transitioning out of doing a lot of national work. I still do some national work, and I'm honing a lot of my work in my home state of Colorado. So I'm designing workshops for Colorado educators to come to every summer where they can learn about all the things that make great schools. And it's just one of the most exciting aspects of my life. I've been very lucky in my work life.
That sounds like such a rewarding process, seeing kind of a broken system with a lot of well-meaning people.
Yes.
Fixing that system and like giving success to both the educator and the students, and then therefore the parents and the leaders, all that. That's such a cool thing that you can do and that you're skilled in and passionate about. That's such a good combination.
Yes, it's been a huge blessing in my life. And my late husband was a big supporter of my career. From the get-go, he knew I wanted to work with kids, and, he supported me in getting my master's degree when I went back to school, and then later my principal license. And he knew that I wanted to get my doctorate. He didn't live long enough to see that come to fruition, but it was always his greatest hope because it was my greatest hope, so he was always my cheerleader. Part of the reason that I was so successful in my career was, along with his support, he was also, at some point, he became a stay-at-home dad. And it was just so wonderful to be able to have him at home and have the kids taken care of and all that kind of stuff so that I could focus on the career and then, come home and make dinner.
Yeah.
Know that, the kids got home safe, like that kind of thing. They were picked up from school because, I obviously had to work a little bit longer than the kids' school day ended. But he was such a great encourager of the work.
Which is such a valuable key, because without that,
yes,
the likelihood of such a successful career would have been less likely to become a reality. So.
Absolutely. Yeah. The partnership was a big deal.
Yeah. I want to hear more about your husband. I know that's how you're kind of plugged into Inheritance of Hope. So I guess share the story of, your family's journey with illness and what that's looked like for you all.
Absolutely. Well, my husband and I were very lucky that we found each other at young ages. I was actually 19 when I met him, and I oh my gosh, it is so young. But we got married when I was 22, and it was just a wonderful life together. Like I said, I met him when I was 22, and then he passed away when I was 39. So we had 20 years together. And in that time, we built a house together. We, had 3 children. We had so much fun. And we also got to experience what terminal illness looks like for a family. So at some point, I remember him coughing a lot. And it was kind of like, what's going on? Like with the cough, this is kind of unusual for you. But he was an outdoorsy guy. He always was like on his mountain bike or playing Frisbee golf. And at that time in Colorado, which this would have been 2018 when he first had a cough, there were a lot of wildfires in the area. And so we had a lot of heavy smoke. We live at the base of the foothills. And So really we kind of chalked it up to, he's in the mountains a lot and outside a lot and just getting that smoke, and it just was kind of irritating. Looking back, that was the first symptom that led us to a diagnosis of stage 4 lung cancer. And at that time in his life, he was a non-smoker. He had smoked in his teenage years and quit when he met me, because that was a determining factor on if our relationship was going to continue. I said, I can't date a smoker. So he quit cold turkey. So in our life together, he was never a smoker. So it was just this thing where we kind of were going back and forth to the doctor, trying to figure out, what was going on. And there really was nothing else besides this cough that would lead us, to do any more digging. Eventually we pushed and dug a little bit more. And in November of 2018, he was diagnosed. And we went through a journey of a variety of treatments and radiation. And in July of 2019, he passed away. One of the things that we went through during the illness time was being referred to different agencies and different community, agents and that sort of thing. And someone at the oncology office said, "Hey, I've heard about this organization called Inheritance of Hope. I think they're doing some good things out there. I'd love to recommend your name to them." And at that point, we were like, yes, like anything. Like we didn't understand what we were saying yes to. We were just like everything and anything. And Inheritance of Hope invited us to go to Orlando on a retreat with our 3 children. And so that was April of 2019. And it was absolutely phenomenal. I think one of the ways that I like to express what Inheritance Hope did for me is, as a mother of 3 children, and at that time also a caregiver to my husband full time, I was constantly filled with details. So, what do I pack in the backpack? What's all the things? Okay, this person has to get here and that person has to get there, and details. I felt like a CEO of a major company, but it was just a little family of 5.
Yeah.
And the first day, Inheritance of Hope in Orlando, I'll never forget, we got off the bus from the airport, and some volunteers came up and gave us hugs, and it was all love, and we didn't know them, but we were like, yay, we love love. And they took my backpack and they said, "Let me take that. You don't need to carry it." And I go, "Oh, it's okay. Like, I got it. Like, I'll take, it's fine." And they're like, "Nope. For this week, you're not carrying anything." And it, even though it was a physical backpack, it was also a spiritual lifting that they gave me the gift of that week. They took the kids and went swimming. And then, we'd be at Disney. I think we were at Disney World or Universal. We were at Universal. And, Brad wasn't able to go on a lot of the rides. So I would sit with him, and volunteers would take our kids on the rides. And we were just looking at each other like, oh, this is the most incredible group of all time. Our kids are safe and having fun and being loved on. It was just such a treasure. And at that retreat, we also experienced some group talk, and we got to be associated with kind of people that were also going through, other couples that were going through similar illness. And then I got to meet with other caregivers, and Brad got to meet with other people with the diagnosis. It was a really special time. Throughout the entire time that he was sick, he really didn't look like he was sick. We got real lucky. He felt really good. He had reduced energy, but he was still the same guy. It wasn't until about a month before he passed when his decline happened. So I really look at that as a blessing. And one of the things that I prayed for consistently was a miracle. I prayed every day since the day he was diagnosed, "Please, Lord, heal him in his entirety. Give us the miracle. Let it be in your name." I mean, I would just say that prayer all the time. 2 days before he passed, we put him into in-home hospice. And that is when we realized we were at the end. And we both had to accept that. And we're both believers and followers of Jesus. And in that moment, we signed the papers, we signed the DNR. It was very emotional. Well, it wasn't emotional when we signed it. And then the nurse left, and he was sitting down at the dining room table, and I was holding him and hugging him, and he was hugging me, and he was crying and I was crying. And then all of a sudden I realized I felt like almost like a wetness on the top of my head. And I had this image while we held each other and cried and mourned our future loss, that I had this image that, Jesus was holding us too. And he was crying tears of mourning as well, because I don't believe that people get terminal illness as like a part of God's plan. I think things happen, and sometimes good things happen and sometimes bad things happen. But what God is faithful about is joining you on the journey. And so one of the things that I've been, that I noticed throughout the illness and then after he passed was, in times of darkness, when you only see the dark, God's light is actually there. It's just invisible. And you have to find ways to turn the light on so that you don't drown in the darkness. And so one of the ways that I found a way to turn the light on was through reflection and journaling. And 5 years after Brad passed, I wrote a book called The Widow's Truth: What to Do When You Lose the Love of Your Life. And, looking back in the 5 years, that 5 years between Brad's death and the book coming out, so many different life experiences happened. So many blessings happened. But one of the biggest blessings I noticed was that prayer that I prayed when he was diagnosed for miracle of healing. It did happen. It just didn't happen in the way that I expected. It didn't happen on this earth, but he was released from his pain. He was completely healed in heaven. And my kids and I, we have been restored in a way that I don't think anyone could have anticipated. And so Inheritance of Hope has been a huge dynamic in our life since Brad's passing. I mean, something as simple as receiving a text from someone at Inheritance of Hope on Brad's death anniversary or on his birthday. It's really incredible to feel like you're alone, and then you get this text and you're like, oh my gosh, somebody remembered, right? It really means the world. And I've also been a part of the grief group, the Life After Loss group. I've done a couple of Bible studies and book studies with Inheritance of Hope, and just anytime there's a group, I like to be involved with it, for Inheritance of Hope, because they really choose meaningful content and they're very authentic about how they proceed into the work. And it's really just about loving people, and it's beautiful. So Inheritance of Hope has been a huge blessing in our world.
Facing terminal illness is difficult enough, but you don't have to go through it alone. Whether you're at home, in a hospital bed, or on the road, join us. We are a community of people that get it. Find the connection, support, and hope you deserve. Because when you don't know where to turn, you can always find hope at home. So don't waste another second. Sign up today. Hope is waiting for you at inheritanceofhope.org.
Well, thank you for sharing all of that. And I feel like there's so many things that I want to different angles I want to take. But I think my biggest question out of all of that is, what was Brad like? I know you said he was kind of your biggest supporter and kind of made your career dreams possible being a partner that he was. But how would you describe him to someone who's never met him?
Well, he was just fun, just pure fun. He loved to laugh. He had the best laugh. He loved to make other people laugh. He was definitely like the funny comedian. We have some family videos that we watch every now and again, and it's always like he'll be on camera all of a sudden and he'll just like make a weird face, like just to make somebody laugh, and you can hear the kids giggling in the video. It's really cute. But he was a fine artist, as well as a graphic artist, and he had a talent for creativity. He was also a woodworker as a hobby, and one of the reasons I have the same bedroom set even now that we shared is because he made it.
Wow.
So I love having his pieces still in our house, even though we've changed probably every inch, every centimeter of our home. Since then, we've kept his woodworking pieces. He loved being a dad. He loved being a husband. One of the things that he and I used to say together all the time was we were each other's yin and yang. That we were very opposite. I was like the sequential, logical type A side, and he was the let's get wild, have fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it just made for a perfect balance because we needed that other thing in our life in order to, stay balanced. And one of the things that when he left us is the kids and I both, we just had this huge gaping hole in our life. And somewhere along the line, I kind of got it into my head, well, I have to be both parents now. I need to be the fun-loving, whatever, and da da da. And that didn't work because you can only use the gifts that you were given. And so I learned how to tone down my type A-ness, tone up a little more fun, but kind of meet in the middle a little bit. But in no way, do we replace our loved ones. But I think when I have fun, loving, and surprising impromptu moments, it's because I'm tapping into him. In fact, last night, my oldest, who's a sophomore in college, made us dinner. She does every Sunday night, and it was a delicious dinner. I loved it. But afterwards, the kids were having dessert, and I was like, I don't want ice cream. I think I'm gonna have a bowl of cereal. And she was like, oh, that's Dad channeling you. Like, Dad always likes cereal for dessert. And I had forgotten that, but it was true. And so I was like, that's really cool that she remembers, him in that like funny, silly way of having a bowl of cereal for dessert. And I love that because when he passed, the children were 5, 6, and 12. They were really young. And now my youngest is 12 years old. So it's definitely been a run. One of the things also that I wanted to share was when you lose the love of your life, you're kind of swimming in this abyss. And I used the metaphor that my heart, when Brad died, my heart was shattered into pieces inside my body. And then it just like crystallized and went everywhere in my body. And then my job over the next years of time was to rebuild my heart. And that's where God partnered with me in that work. I just used to tell myself a lot, okay, in order to have a breakthrough, you have to have a breakdown. So it's okay to have a breakdown. The breakdown shows I'm moving through it, because I thought the worst thing that I could do for my grief and for my kids was to try to go over it or try to stuff the grief or try to move around it. I really felt strongly that the only way to move to a healthy existence post-Brad was to move through the pain. And that's a lot of what I've journaled in the book as well.
Yeah, that's so good. And something that's so intimidating is to like, okay, I just have to show up to this pain, even though I want to run. I want to cope. I want to numb. And like, I've shared this before on a different episode, but it feels like as humans, we just kind of become pack rats of like, how much stuff can I like insulate myself from the pain and the world? But the real journey through it is to like get rid of all that stuff and just to feel it. And to show up to it, even when it's hard, which obviously is easier said than done. And that's an abstract concept. So if you're in the midst of it, you're like, okay, but what does that actually mean? So what, from your perspective, I know you write about this in your book and I'm sure have so many thoughts on it, but kind of take us through what the widow's journey has looked like for you and then kind of what advice you would share with other people going through it.
Well, I think the first thing is just in that initial and horrific grief, if you will, is to just accept what is. It's not bad. It's not good. It just is. And that everything you're feeling as a widower is completely normal. You will feel like you're losing your mind. You will either not be able to sleep or you sleep too much. You're never going to be hungry or you're going to want to eat everything. You have new fears unlocked that you never even knew you were scared of. You're going to hear things and see things that maybe you've never heard or seen before. And you're going to have, brain fog. And it's those first initial days are just messy. And so to give yourself time and space, take time off from work or, use whatever sick time or FMLA you can and really just be in it. Like that's the best way, because also you have to be present for your kids. I remember, I would grieve so much privately and then nighttime would hit and I'd be like, okay, finally I can go to sleep. And then that's when the grief would kick in from my kids. One kid would be like, Mommy, I have a tummy ache. And then the other kid would be like, I can't sleep. I'm scared. There's something in my room, whatever. And before you know it, all 3 kids would be in the bed with me. And I'm like, I guess I'm not sleeping tonight, And so you're, as a solo parent, you really have to hone in and separate out like what is my grief and how can I be there for my children to get them through their grief. And One of the ways that worked for me, probably because I'm an educator, was reading books that dealt with the topic. One of the books that I read was Option B by Sheryl Sandberg and a co-author. And they talked about pervasiveness and permanence. And for me, reading that, I was like, oh my gosh, that makes so much sense. Because pervasiveness is when you start to feel like your grief is inserting itself into every nook and cranny in your life. Nothing will be untouched by your grief. And then permanence is this idea that it's never ending. It's just going to go on and on and on, and you're never going to sleep again, and you're never going to feel any better again, and you're always going to have brain fog. So once I was able to read that as almost like an academic intellectual area, I was able to then apply it and say, oh, I have been thinking this. I have been feeling like, well, now that Brad's gone, I'm never going to find love again, and I'm never going to be whole again, and da-da-da-da-da. And I was able to reframe my thoughts into a way that's like, well, this is where I'm at right now. It doesn't mean that's where I'm going to be at forever. And even that was very powerful for me, to just give myself space to say, this is where I'm at right now, and it's okay. The other thing, in today's society, especially like social media and stuff, we're very judgmental of other people. And it is so easy to hear somebody else's story and judge them. Oh, well, they shouldn't have done this or should have done this or blah, 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 blah. And I just became so clear that I was not going to judge myself in my process. It was all about whatever I felt was what I felt. I wasn't going to judge my children in their process, well, whatever they felt was what they felt. And I wasn't going to judge other widows going through this an experience as well. And I really became clear that if I was judging others, I was actually judging myself. Like that negativity would bounce back to me. And I really wanted to create, and I think I have to this day, of this non-judgmental approach to healing, where whatever it is that you need to do is okay. We're obviously staying within boundaries of, not going into self-harm and things like that. But in terms of, if you want to drink a whole gallon of Kool-Aid a day because the sugar rush makes you feel alive, that's okay. It's totally fine. Like, I got addicted to crumble cookies. I was like, I got to go to Crumble today and get a sugar cookie. It's so good. It was a season. It wasn't healthy, but I did it. And it was okay. And nothing is permanent. And so I really jumped into this idea of, I'm not going to judge others through my journey and therefore not judge myself. And just really to do whatever the moment called for. And to the point of, I remember one time it was 10 p.m. in my house and none of us were sleeping. This was a couple months after Brad had passed. And so I just said, hey guys, you want to go make some waffles? Oh, we all got out of bed and we went downstairs and we made homemade waffles and we ate at 10:30 at night. And it was awesome. Yeah. It's what the moment called for. But never in my previous life as a mother would I be like, well, I'm going to wake my kids up and make waffles at 10:30 at night. Like, that's no. Mm-hmm. So as a widow, you just start to just get creative about ways that you can choose joy and seek joy. One of the ways that I found in choosing joy, which has become my life mantra, is really getting clear around what I call the calendar of landmines. And because all of a sudden that first year, you're like, oh my gosh, here's a birthday. Here's my kid's birthday. Here's my birthday. Here's my husband's birthday. All these things, Christmas, Thanksgiving, all the things that were once these wonderful, joyous occasions now are tinted with this haze of, well, he should be here too, right? Yeah. And it just makes everything harder. So after I got through the first year and started reflecting, I was like, how can I get through another year of the calendar of landmines a little bit better? And I started setting alerts in the calendar for a couple of days before and so make a plan. What are you going to do on this day? What are you going to do this day? And now we're 6 years out. And just last night, my kids and I had our family meeting and talked about what are we going to do this Friday because it would be Daddy's 50th birthday. And so we talked about, well, what would Daddy want to do if he was here? He'd want to have pizza and let's get chocolate cake. That was his favorite. Okay, let's get chocolate. Let's watch Star Wars. He loves Star Wars. We got to do that. Okay, let's do that. So it's being proactive in kind of creating joy in this moment of hurt and loss. And so it's, Friday's going to be really tough, and it's also going to be beautiful because my kids and I get to celebrate. We'll probably share some stories about them. And that's what the different calendar, the death anniversary or the anniversaries and the birthdays, they can become a time where you can choose joy even amidst the greatest heartache.
Wow, that's so profound. So simple and so profound, right? Like hard earned, not just something that you stumbled upon by accident. I'm sure day to day, that's a choice that you really have to be active in.
Yes.
And one thing you said about like the waffles, the Kool-Aid, the crumble cookie, like kind of just doing what you need to. It reminds me of a story that I heard, kind of this analogy of, someone going to a counselor and saying like, I just am in this depressive episode. Doing the dishes sounds so terrible to me. Like I can't do it. And then, they kind of walked through, okay, what about that feels like it would be too much energy? And they kind of unpacked it. And then the therapist was like, okay, run the dishwasher twice. Like, is that best practice? All the days of your life is to run dishes twice? No. But like in this season, what you need is just a little extra wiggle room, like a little extra margin. Like don't rinse the food off before you put it in. Like literally just run the dishwasher twice. And so to have permission to do that, and I think like from your personal experience, I think other people listening to this will resonate with that. And like, yeah, anyone listening, this is your permission slip. Eat the cookie, run the dishwasher twice, like do what you need to, because it's probably only for a season. And if it's healthy or not, like, within some boundaries, like, it's okay because, grief is so immense. And so like your grace for yourself should also be immense.
Yes. Well, I think it's important too, because you mentioned energy, and I think it's important to recognize when you're in grief to choose the things that you do get energy from, because you have a very limited, finite amount of energy when you're heavy in grief. And so if making waffles gives you energy, like do the thing, right? For me, it was mowing the lawn took all my energy. Like I could empty a dishwasher, not a problem. I could do laundry, not a problem. Mowing the lawn was like, my gosh, how am I ever going to be able to do this? Like it just was so, I can't, that was his job. He took care of us in many ways, and that was one way he did it. And so after I mowed the lawn one time and it took all my emotional energy to do that, I thought, I think I could outsource this. And I knocked on a neighbor's door who had a teenage boy at the time. And I was like, do you want to mow my lawn? Every week.
Yeah.
I'll pay you. And he mowed my lawn for 6 years actually until he went to college. So I think that's okay. It's like choose the things that either you have knowledge and skill about or things that give you energy, and then proceed with that, and everything else, outsource it. Call your, a grandmother or best friend or an aunt or something and be like, hey, can you help me with this? Like, I can't. I'm at a loss.
That's so good. Yeah, outsourcing is going to be your best friend when you're like in the thick of everything. And also, that's just a good hack in general to implement.
It is.
I do want to spend some time talking about your book. And anyone listening who's interested, we'll link this in the show notes so you can purchase it and get access to it. But kind of tell me what prompted you to write this book, and what were some things that you learned along the way?
Well, mostly what prompted me was one that I'm an author, and so naturally I kind of heal or process through writing. And I called it The Widow's Truth because it was simply my truth. And I have been asked since the book was released is it for widowers? And I'm like, yes, absolutely. I just happen, the pronoun is widow, so that's what I called it, but it's absolutely non-gender specific. It's called What to Do When You Lose the Love of Your Life. And what I did is I divided grief into kind of 4 areas. I wrote a memory associated with one of the areas, and then different research and other resources that kind of support why this area happens for widows. And then my favorite part is that each of the areas has a task list, optional, but say you're the type that's maybe not logistical, not type A, doesn't think in like my brain is an Excel spreadsheet. Your brain doesn't work like that. So in this book, I've created like a list of documents and forms and tasks and things as a parent of a child in elementary school and middle school and high school that you will want to take care of. Just things that you don't have to think about. You can just read this and be like, oh, Aisha said this is good. Check it off the list. I love it. But I do want to share a couple of things. And I think I've talked a little bit about choosing joy, but for me, I really did have to have a mantra early on that I could kind of lean into so that even in the dark moments, it was just like, okay, I can see the light. It's not invisible. There's a little bit of light there. So at the end of the book, in the conclusion, I write this. I said, choosing joy has not only become my motto, my point of reference, and my own personal moment-to-moment meditation, but it is the foundation of what my new life is. Lived a life before Brad, and I once lived a life with Brad, and now I live a life after Brad. No matter if I'm losing my mind, moving forward but not moving on, navigating a calendar of landmines, or grieving till death do us part, I am still here. I see joy in that. I am living my dream life, but it's not the life I dreamed of. I created a new and wonderful reality for myself and my children. We are bonded together so strongly as a family unit, and each of us is thriving in this new design. Yes, we miss Brad. Yes, we grieve his absence, but we are still here, choosing to embrace joy and to chase our new dreams. It is possible to find a way through grief, pain, and loss. And I hope this book helps in your process. Go and live big. I think that encompasses the why I wrote it and all the things that are part of it.
That's beautiful. The line that really stuck out to me, I want to like frame this somewhere, but like living your dream life, but it's not the life you dreamed of. Wow, that kind of summarizes a life of sorrow and joy, like living in the tension of holding both. That's beautiful.
Yes. Thank you.
Wow. One thing I have two more questions. I feel like this could be like a 3-hour podcast, and I feel like our brains are pretty similar. I feel like everything you're saying, I want to like have 5 bullet points off of. So the one question kind of goes back to one of the first stories you shared about the Inheritance of Hope volunteer greeting you and taking the backpack from you. That feels like a beautiful analogy of Inheritance of Hope, but also like maybe what your book is for someone else, or just these resources. So in what ways, or I guess what was kind of in your backpack as a caregiver? What was the mental load you were carrying, the emotions you were working through? And then with Inheritance of Hope specifically, like how was that kind of taken off of your shoulders?
Well, the life of a caregiver is just filled with constant busyness because you no longer have any time for yourself. You can barely take a shower or use the restroom. Like you have 0 time for yourself. Every moment in your world from the second you wake up is planning and prepping for the other person because you'll have appointments and you got to have, I had like a medical binder and we have to, who's meeting us there and does his mom need to come? Do I need to invite my mom? Like what, all the things. And then there's the children and you're trying to, maintain normalcy and routine for your children. So the cognitive load is very heavy. One of my favorite pictures, which is probably a little bit ironic, that Brad ever took of me was when he was admitted to the hospital at some point, and I was running nonstop, trying to be present for him, go take care of the kids, make sure they have dinner, doing all the stuff. And at some point when I was in his hospital room, he was sitting in the lazy boy chair recliner, and I fell asleep on his hospital bed. I think at that point, I probably hadn't slept in 2 days, to be real honest. And he took this picture and he put it on Facebook and he's like, some angels live among us. And one, for him to recognize, what I was doing to keep our lives afloat. But 2, you're doing it out of love. There is no Caregivers aren't like, oh, well, I'm just doing this because then one day he'll pay me back. One day I'll be sick and he's like, no, I love him and I want to do everything I can to make him comfortable. And I love my children and I want to do everything I can to make sure that they are having a somewhat normal existence. And I think they did. They didn't see a lot of the more medical stuff because they were just so young. I just didn't think it was appropriate for them. And so that backpack is just heavy for a caregiver. My caregiving time, I would say, is short, knowing that it was about 8 months, because by the time he was diagnosed, it was already stage 4. But I've met many, many families who, for instance, are dealing with ALS or glioblastoma or other forms of terminal illness, and it lasts years and years and years. And that caregiving really compounds. And sometimes there's no family around. I got so lucky that I had a loving, close family, like geographically close, family too. And so the caregiver's backpack is just filled to the brim with all the things. So when Inheritance of Hope came around and took that backpack from me, even on a temporary basis, it just was like, this is it. Oh, I just needed a day. Like, thank you. I needed an hour. Thank you. I remember being able to take a nap. Like they took the kids to the pool and I slept in the hotel. I think it was like 45 minutes, but it felt like 9 hours. Like I woke up like, so refreshed, And so that only continued after Brad's passing, Inheritance of Hope, just through offering, grief groups and book studies and just loving support. But what's really cool is Inheritance of Hope doesn't do it in a way that feels condescending. Like, well, let me come and save you or help you, or like, they're just approach you in this way of like, we love people and we want to include you in our circle of love. And it's just a wonderful feeling. And then what's really cool about Inheritance of Hope is when you're ready, they invite you to help and be a part and serve other families. And I know one of the goals that I have eventually is to be able to serve on a retreat and with my kids, I just think that would be so amazing. I know a lot of my friends in Inheritance of Hope were served on a retreat and have now done many, many retreats. And I absolutely adore that. I just think it's just such an amazing circle of life and give back. So one of the ways I have chosen to give back is through writing this book. And I've priced it extremely low on Amazon so that anyone has access to it. And anytime I can, I just give it away for free. I was at church yesterday and unfortunately there is a new widow there and I just wrote an inscription and handed it to her and here you go, if it helps. I've have many friends that when they meet a widow, they're like, can I get a copy of your book and send it to this person I just met? Yep, here you go. Like, it's not at all about like I make zero money off it and I'm okay with that. I just want it to help people get perspective on their own grief and loss and how they can move through it in a healthy way.
I love that so much. And I feel like part of the concept that you shared of giving back when you're ready is also just a beautiful way to keep the legacy alive of your person. Because if they received that and enjoyed that and you get to provide that for other people, or if your person was a people person and just loved people and loved showing love, like giving back so that more people can experience the love that your person had for life and for people, like that is just a beautiful way to keep their legacy alive.
Absolutely. Yeah. A lot of healing is finding what's legacy and traditions that I can do for my family and my, and I list a lot in the book as well, but it's really about, again, going back to the idea of calendar of landmines annually on the day that Brad passed, I make that a day just for myself. I don't make plans. I don't go anywhere. Well, sometimes I go somewhere, but I don't make plans to go anywhere. I just want the clean slate of a day so that I can allow myself to be in the journey of whatever happens. And honestly, some days, some years, it's been 3:00 in the afternoon before I'll get out of bed, and that's just what it is. And other times I wake up and have a good cry, and then I take the kids to the movies, It just depends on the year. And I think part of healing and honoring and having your person's legacy still live on beyond them is taking time to feel and to exist in the space without them, and to just say, like, I'm so thankful for the time we had, and now this is where I'm at, and this is where I choose joy in this moment, even without you.
Yeah, and that's what Inheritance of Hope focuses on so much, is kind of our tagline is joy in terminal illness, which is crazy because that doesn't feel like it should coexist.
Yeah.
And a lot of times it's a choice. It's not like, oh, you're just going to be so happy that you're in this situation. Like, no, it probably sucks. Like, no one really wants to be in here. However, like, there is that opportunity for joy, even if you have to like fight to experience it and fight to find it. It is possible. Even like your story, joy, without the love of your life, because the love of your life was so incredible, that like you are still able to find joy with or without him, but still influenced by his love so much.
Absolutely. Yes.
So we always end every episode with the question of whose legacy has impacted you, whether in their life or their death. Like, who are you still carrying on?
Yeah. I think the most impactful person is actually a person I never met. And it's Martin Luther King Jr. Because I've studied his work during my whole life, but specifically his book, The Strength to Love. And it's a compacted version of many of his sermons. But just this idea of that he took something he learned from Gandhi about nonviolence and shifted that into an entire civil rights movement. I'm very inspired by people in history who choose to work for people and choose to serve people and devote their entire lives and circle their entire families around social justice and creating peace in this world. And for him to choose this strategy of nonviolent, we are not going to engage with words, with negative words, or by force in a time that was all about negativity and force, I think was just so beautiful. And he really felt God's calling to do that work. And so for me, the reason that's so impactful is because when I look at the work that I do with schools and with my own family, I always want people to recognize that it is from a place of love when I, maybe challenge their practices or have new ideas or ways of doing things, that it is always a place of being relentlessly respectful and respectfully relentless.
That's a good combo. You've got a lot of good taglines from this episode, man.
I've had good mentors and coaches, like I started out.
Yeah. Wow. That's so good. And I love that the combination of like, just because it's not nonviolent doesn't mean that there's not going to be any resistance or like pushing to strive because you love someone and you're going to hold them to standards and accountability, but like in a great demonstration of that, not with force, not with anger or rage or anything. I think that is a great environment for people to learn in and grow in. So yeah, thanks for devoting your life to like doing this in the school systems and for your own family and with the book. I'm sure that anyone listening to this will be highly encouraged. I'm excited to include your book information in the show notes. I feel like I want to read it now just because I feel like this episode could have been so much longer, but yeah.
I love it. Well, thank you for having me. I greatly appreciating a chance to share.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Aisha still hears his laugh in the room. 20 years of love gone far too soon.
He built joy out of every day, funny and creative in his own sweet way. We still hum those Alicia Keys songs, the words remind them we'll carry on.
We choose joy when the tears fall down, hold each other close when no one's around. Through the laughter and the pain we know, we keep moving with faith that grows. God walks beside my baby girl paints colors so bright.
Just like her dad, she brings dreams to life.
Goose runs fast through the morning light.
Got her daddy's spark, her spirit's bright. And then there's D, Lego towers tall. Star Wars marathons echo through the hall.
Aisha whispers,
He'd be proud today.
love like his never
Fades away. When the house feels quiet and still,
we find peace in Jesus' will. We choose joy. When the tears fall down, hold each other close. When no one's around, through the laughter and the pain we've known, we keep moving with faith that grows. God walks beside us
all day long as we
choose to be courageous and strong.
We remember those Disney lights so bright, laugh until midnight, hearts so light. Taking that blue truck down to the shore, windows down, couldn't ask for more. But when the days feel heavy, we look above and rest in the peace of Jesus' love. Dancing our songs, our jokes are art, forever written on each heart.
We choose joy. When the tears fall down, hold each other close. When no one's around, through the laughter and the pain we've known, we keep moving with faith that grows. God walks beside us
All day long as we choose each day to be courageous and strong.